The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council chamber caught the light of 3 setting suns, casting prismatic shadows across the faces of 200 species representatives. Emergency sessions were rare enough to be legendary, yet here they sat, their attention fixed on the holographic display at the chamber center. It showed a modest solar system with 8 planets, the third one a swirling marble of blue and green. High Counselor Zyra, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with concern, addressed the assembly. The Viridian Empire's fleet movements near Earth's territory can no longer be ignored. We've watched humanity for centuries as they grew from a primitive spacefaring race into something unique. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone present knew humanity's peculiar history, how they'd achieved faster-than-light travel before developing reliable fusion power, how they'd created artificial gravity through rotational stations instead of graviton manipulation, how they'd solved problems in ways that often left other species baffled. Our analysts predict a 97% probability that High Admiral Kraz of the Viridian Empire will launch an offensive against Earth within the next solar cycle. Zyra continued, "We must send an official warning." From his seat in the observer's gallery, High Admiral Kraz of the Viridian Empire barely contained his amusement. His scaled skin shifted colors slightly, betraying his emotional state to anyone who knew how to read Viridian biology. The humans called it peacocking, a term that amused him given his species' distant evolutionary relationship to avian creatures. The Galactic Council's warning arrived at his flagship 3 days later. Kraz sat on his command throne, his second-in-command Vex standing rigidly at attention as the message played. The Council formally advises against any military action toward Earth or its colonies. Humanity's neutral status must be preserved for the stability of the galaxy. Their unique problem-solving capabilities and technological development patterns make them an unpredictable factor in any conflict. Kraz terminated the message with a gesture. "Unpredictable," he scoffed. "They're primitive. Look at their ships. No quantum shielding, no dark matter drives, not even proper plasma weapons. They're still using chemical propellants in some of their missiles, for void's sake." Vex shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, our intelligence suggests their technological development is unusual. They appear to solve problems through unconventional means. They solve problems like children. Vex. They brute force solutions because they don't understand the elegant answers." Kraz pulled up a tactical display. "Look at their colony on Proximub. They built underground instead of using atmospheric processors like any sensible species. They're cave dwellers playing at being a spacefaring race. The Council seems to think." "The Council is paralyzed by fear of change," Kraz interrupted. "The Viridian Empire has conquered 12 species more advanced than humans. Our ships outclass theirs in every metric. Their defeat will be swift, and the Council will thank us later for bringing order to that sector." On Earth, the United Earth Defense Council received the warning from the Galactic Council with grave attention. General Sarah Chen studied the holographic projection of known Viridian fleet movements, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. "They're testing our response times," she noted, pointing to a pattern of probe deployments near the Proxima Centauri colony. "Classic Viridian tactics. They did the same thing before invading the Arcturus Federation." Admiral James Rodriguez, his dark eyes reflecting the star map, nodded. "But they're missing something crucial about those response times." A slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. "They're seeing exactly what we want them to see." For the past decade, humanity had maintained a careful facade of technological inadequacy. While their ships appeared to use primitive chemical engines, the exhaust trails masked the quantum wake of something far more sophisticated. Their apparent lack of energy shielding concealed metamaterial armor that could adapt to any weapon frequency. Every primitive aspect of human technology had been carefully crafted to conceal innovations that had developed along entirely different lines than the rest of the galaxy's tech tree. "Project Phoenix is ready," Chen asked. 97% deployed," Rodriguez confirmed. "Hidden in plain sight," just like everything else. Every colony, every station, every ship has its Phoenix protocols in place. Even the mining operations they think are so primitive. In the void between stars, Viridian attack squadrons began their final preparation phases. High Admiral Kraz reviewed the invasion plans with satisfaction. The humans' limited FTL capabilities would prevent them from reinforcing their colonies quickly. Their outdated sensors would give plenty of warning time to prevent any surprise counterattacks. Everything about their technology suggested a species that had rushed into space before they were ready. A junior tactical officer approached Kraz's command throne. "Sir, we've detected unusual energy signatures from several human mining operations. They appear to be using some form of resonant frequency mining, but the patterns don't match known techniques." No doubt another of their crude solutions, Kraz dismissed. They probably discovered harmonic drilling by accident and don't even understand the principles behind it. Add it to the technical database for analysis after the conquest. The first strikes against human territory began with precision raids on outlying mining operations. Viridian ships emerged from hyperspace, their quantum shields at full power, expecting negligible resistance from the primitive human defenses. They found empty stations, not destroyed, not evacuated, simply empty, as though the humans had never been there at all. But the mining operation showed signs of activity mere hours old. "Impossible," Kraz muttered, reviewing the reconnaissance data. "Their ships can't match our speed. They can't have detected our approach and evacuated so quickly." He turned to his tactical officer. "Find them. They must have some kind of cloaking technology we haven't detected." But as reports flooded in from other raid sites, a pattern emerged that sent a chill down Kraz's spine. Every target they'd selected, every single one, had been empty upon arrival. Yet long-range sensors showed normal activity at other human operations. Somehow, they'd known exactly which facilities would be targeted and when. In her command center deep beneath the Olympus Mons facility on Mars, General Chen watched the Viridian fleet movements with grim satisfaction. "They're following the exact attack pattern we predicted," she noted. "Time to show them why the Council warned them about human unpredictability." Across human space, hidden facilities hummed to life. The facade of primitive technology began to fall away, revealing something the galaxy had never seen before. The Viridians were about to learn why humanity's unique development path made them so dangerous. And High Admiral Kraz, watching his perfect invasion plans begin to unravel, was about to understand exactly what the Galactic Council had tried to warn him about. The Viridian battle cruiser Eternal Dawn hung in space above what should have been a bustling human mining colony on Europa. High Admiral Kraz's scaled hands clenched the arms of his command throne as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Every single mining facility appeared abandoned, yet long-range scans showed impossible energy signatures pulsing deep beneath Europa's icy surface. "Play the intercept again," he commanded. A human communication crackled through the bridge speakers. Mining Station Echo 7 reporting nominal operations. Production exceeding quarterly estimates by 12%. The timestamp showed it was broadcast just 6 hours ago. But Echo 7, like every other facility the Viridians had targeted, was empty. "It's a deception," Vex suggested, his secondary eyes narrowing. "They must have automated their communications." Kraz shook his head. "The quantum variance patterns in their transmissions indicate live biological sources. They're here, Vex. Somewhere. Somehow." He pulled up a tactical overlay of the solar system. "Begin Phase 2. Let's see how they handle a full battle fleet." Deep within Titan's methane seas, in a facility whose existence was known to fewer than 50 humans, Admiral Rodriguez watched the Viridian fleet movements with calculated interest. The vast chamber was filled with hundreds of terminals, each staffed by Earth's brightest military minds. But these weren't traditional military officers. They were game theorists, chaos mathematicians, and quantum strategists. "They're moving exactly as the social prediction matrices suggested," noted Dr. Emily Chung, head of xenopsychology. Her hands danced over holographic controls, adjusting variables in real time. Kraz's species evolved from apex predators. When confused, they instinctively escalate rather than retreat. Rodriguez smiled. And how long until they notice? The quantum entanglement network is already picking up fluctuations in their scan patterns. They'll realize in approximately 6 hours that every sensor reading they've received from human space for the past 5 years has been carefully curated. Project Phoenix had begun as a desperate gamble 15 years ago, when humanity first realized the true extent of Viridian military superiority. Rather than attempt to match their technology directly, Earth's leaders had chosen a different path. They had created a vast network of quantum-entangled particles spread throughout every human settlement and ship. This network didn't just allow for instant communication. It allowed for the projection of false sensor readings on a massive scale. The Viridians weren't seeing empty facilities. They were seeing exactly what humans wanted them to see, filtered through their own sensor systems. The reality was far more interesting. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, a junior sensor officer suddenly straightened. "Sir," energy spike detected in the Kuiper belt. Kraz leaned forward. Finally, a real reaction from the humans. Analysis. Sir, it's like nothing we've ever encountered. The energy signature suggests. It suggests they're using the entire Kuiper belt as some kind of quantum computing substrate. Impossible, Kraz breathed. But the data was undeniable. Somehow, the humans had turned millions of icy bodies into a vast, interconnected quantum computer. The processing power would be incalculable. In the Titan facility, Rodriguez gave the order they'd been waiting 15 years to execute. Initiative checkmate. Commence. Across the solar system, human facilities began to shift. What the Viridians had thought were primitive mining operations revealed themselves as nodes in a vast tactical network. The empty facilities were actually fully staffed, their personnel protected by phase shift technology that kept them microseconds out of sync with normal spacetime. Kraz watched in growing horror as his sensor readings suddenly began to make sense. The humans hadn't been mining resources. They'd been building something. Something massive. Something that used the entire solar system as its infrastructure. "Sir," Vex's voice was tight with concern, "we're detecting quantum entanglement signatures from every piece of human technology we've scanned in the past 5 years. Every single reading we have about their capabilities has been filtered through their network." "Recalibrate all sensors," Kraz ordered. "I want true readings." But it was too late. The quantum network wasn't just for deception. It was a weapons platform, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. As the Viridian fleet scrambled to understand what they were facing, the first true demonstration of human military capability began. Quantum-entangled particles, carefully seeded throughout Viridian ships during years of seemingly innocent trade, activated simultaneously. Shield frequencies, weapon configurations, and engine signatures were suddenly accessible to human tactical systems. Every technological advantage the Viridians thought they had was compromised. In the Titan Command Center, Dr. Chang's predictive matrices showed a 99.97% probability of the next Viridian move. "They'll retreat to regroup," she announced. "Their entire tactical doctrine is based on technological superiority. Without it, they'll fall back to their nearest fortress world to reassess." Rodriguez nodded. "And that's exactly what we want them to do." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the Europan Defense Fleet. Operation Looking Glass is a go." As the Viridian ships began their withdrawal, they remained unaware that their retreat had been choreographed from the very beginning. Humanity hadn't just prepared for this war. They had shaped every aspect of it, using the Viridians' own psychological and tactical predictability against them. High Admiral Kraz, watching his mighty fleet pull back from what he had thought would be an easy conquest, finally began to understand the true meaning of the Galactic Council's warning. Humanity hadn't developed along predictable technological lines because they had never intended to fight a predictable war. The fortress world of Viridian Prime glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space, its orbital rings bristling with defensive platforms and battle stations. High Admiral Kraz stood before the Imperial War Council, his scales dulled with fatigue and worry. "They let us retreat," he admitted, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "Every movement, every tactical decision we made, they predicted it all." The War Council chamber erupted in hisses of disbelief. Admiral Sixus, her ceremonial crown glinting, leaned forward. "Impossible. Our tactical algorithms are based on millennia of warfare experience." "That was our fundamental mistake," Kraz replied, pulling up a holographic display. "We assumed they would fight like us. Instead, they turned their entire solar system into a weapon." The display showed the true sensor readings they'd finally managed to obtain. Earth's solar system wasn't just a collection of colonies and mining operations. It was a vast, interconnected machine. The asteroids housed quantum processors. The gas giant storms contained encoded data. Even the solar wind had been harnessed, its particles entangled to create a sensor network that spanned light years. In the Titan Command Center, Admiral Rodriguez watched the Viridian War Council through their own security systems. Dr. Chang's team had compromised them years ago, using quantum-entangled particles embedded in their construction materials. "They're struggling to adapt," Dr. Chang noted, monitoring the psychological indicators. "Their entire society is built on technological superiority. The idea that we've been playing them for years is causing significant cultural shock." Rodriguez nodded. "Time for Phase 3. He turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy the Lazarus swarm." Across human space, seemingly dormant satellites and debris fields suddenly awakened. What the Viridians had dismissed as space junk revealed themselves as highly advanced autonomous units. Each one contained a quantum core that allowed it to coordinate with the entire network instantaneously. The Lazarus swarm moved like a fluid, millions of units flowing through space with perfect coordination. They could combine to form larger structures or split apart to avoid enemy fire. Traditional targeting systems were useless against them. On Viridian Prime, the first alarms began to sound. Unknown objects approaching defense perimeter. A tactical officer announced, his scales flickering with confusion. "They're moving through our shield frequencies as if they weren't there." Kraz rushed to the command center, watching in horror as the Lazarus swarm flowed around their most advanced defensive systems like water around rocks. "How are they penetrating our shields?" The answer became apparent as the swarm units began to interact with Viridian technology. They weren't breaking through the shields. They were phase-shifting to match the exact frequency of the shield harmonics, passing through as if they were part of the shield itself. "This is unprecedented," Vex whispered. "They're not just predicting our shield frequencies, they're adapting to them in real time." In the Titan facility, Dr. Chang's team monitored the Viridian response. "Their tactical doctrine is breaking down," she reported. "They're falling back on individual unit initiatives rather than coordinated defense." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Just as expected. Their hierarchical command structure becomes a weakness when faced with something outside their experience." He turned to his strategic operations team. "Begin broadcast." Across all Viridian communication channels, a message began to play. It was Admiral Rodriguez's voice. But what shocked the Viridians wasn't the message itself. It was that he spoke in perfect High Viridian, including subtle emotional harmonics that should have been impossible for a human to replicate. "This is a demonstration," the message stated. "We could have launched this attack at any time in the past 5 years. Every piece of technology you possess has been compromised. Every tactical advantage you thought you had was an illusion we allowed you to maintain." The Lazarus swarm, having proven its ability to penetrate Viridian defenses, began to withdraw. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to demonstrate. In the War Council chamber, Kraz watched the swarms retreat with a growing understanding of humanity's true strategy. They hadn't just prepared for war. They had fundamentally changed the nature of warfare itself. The mining operations, he realized suddenly. They weren't mining resources. They were seeding quantum-entangled particles throughout the galaxy. Every trade route, every diplomatic mission, every seemingly innocent interaction has been part of their preparation. Vex finished. The question is, what else have they seeded throughout our empire? The answer came sooner than they expected. Throughout Viridian space, quantum signatures began to appear in supposedly secure systems. Manufacturing plants, defense installations, even their most classified research facilities, all showed signs of human quantum infiltration. In the Titan Command Center, Rodriguez watched the Viridian Empire's reaction to this revelation. They're beginning to understand, he noted. But understanding isn't enough. They need to learn why the Council warned them about maintaining our neutrality. Dr. Chang's predictive matrices showed cascading patterns of realization spreading through Viridian military command. Their entire strategic doctrine is unraveling. They built their empire on the assumption that technological superiority equals tactical superiority. And we've just shown them that assumption is fatal, Rodriguez concluded. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare for Phase 4. It's time to show them why trying to force humanity into a war was their greatest mistake. The Lazarus swarm regrouped at the edge of Viridian space, its millions of units forming a vast, shifting constellation that mirrored the shape of the Viridian Imperial Seal, a final psychological blow that demonstrated just how deeply humanity understood their adversary. High Admiral Kraz, watching this display of precision and control, finally understood what the Galactic Council had tried to warn them about. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war. They had spent years ensuring that if war came, it would be fought entirely on their terms. And they were just getting started. The Imperial Palace on Viridian Prime shook with another explosion as their own automated defense systems turned against them. High Admiral Kraz watched through reinforced windows as satellites they had trusted for centuries now operated with terrifying new purpose. The humans hadn't just compromised their technology, they had rewritten its fundamental protocols. Status report, he demanded, his scales now a pale shade of gray, the Viridian equivalent of a cold sweat. Vex consulted his quantum-shielded terminal, one of the few they were certain wasn't compromised. 70% of our automated defense grid is no longer responding to commands. The quantum contamination is spreading through our networks faster than we can isolate it. In the depths of Titan's command center, Admiral Rodriguez watched the chaos unfold through thousands of quantum-linked sensors. Dr. Chang's team had predicted this precise scenario years ago, the moment when the Viridians would realize the true extent of their vulnerability. Initiate Protocol Prometheus, Rodriguez ordered. Let's show them what happens when you force a species that specializes in unconventional solutions into a corner. Across Viridian space, seemingly dormant quantum particles activated. Each one had been carefully positioned over years of peaceful trade, embedded in everything from civilian technology to military-grade weapons. But these weren't just for surveillance or control. They were the components of something far more ambitious. On the bridges of Viridian warships, officers watched in horror as their quantum communication networks began displaying an impossible signal. The space between stars itself appeared to be carrying information, creating a new type of faster-than-light communication that bypassed all known physics. What are we seeing? Kraz demanded, as similar reports flooded in from across the Empire. A senior scientist, her scales shifting in patterns of deep distress, answered. They've created a quantum mesh network using the fabric of space-time itself. Every particle we thought was just for surveillance or control is actually part of a vast computational array. They've turned our entire empire into a single massive quantum computer. In the Titan facility, Dr. Chang monitored the Viridian response. Their command structure is experiencing cascading failures. They can't trust any of their technology, can't verify any communications, can't even be certain their weapons will fire as intended. Rodriguez nodded grimly. And now they understand why we let them think we were technologically inferior. While they were building bigger ships and stronger weapons, we were changing the rules of warfare itself. The human strategy became clear in its terrible elegance. They hadn't tried to match Viridian military might. They had made that might irrelevant. Every piece of advanced technology the Viridians possessed had become a potential liability. Across Viridian space, military installations began powering down as their commanders realized the futility of resistance. Their mighty warships, each capable of destroying entire planets, now sat helpless as their quantum-based systems were seamlessly integrated into the human network. In a desperate bid to maintain control, Kraz ordered his fleet to fall back to analog systems, ancient, pre-quantum technology that couldn't be compromised by human interference. But even this played into humanity's hands. They're downgrading their systems, Dr. Chime reported, watching the predictive matrices shift. Exactly as calculated. By forcing them to abandon their advanced technology, we've effectively sent their military capabilities back 3 centuries. Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. And now for the coup de grace. Initiate the Unity Protocol. Throughout Viridian space, every quantum-linked device began broadcasting the same message, this time in all known galactic languages. We could destroy you. We could take control of every piece of technology you possess. We could dismantle your empire piece by piece. But that was never our goal. The message continued, its implications sending shockwaves through Viridian society. We chose to remain neutral not out of weakness, but because we understood something you didn't. True power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to transform. Every quantum particle we seeded through your empire can be used to enhance your technology rather than disable it. The choice is yours. In the Imperial War Council chamber, Kraz watched as displays showed human quantum enhancement protocols already improving Viridian systems that had surrendered. Civilian infrastructure operated with unprecedented efficiency. Medical systems achieved breakthrough after breakthrough. Even their basic FTL drives were being optimized in ways their best scientists hadn't thought possible. They're not just defeating us, he realized, his voice hollow. They're showing us how primitive our understanding of technology truly was. The Galactic Council's warning now made terrible sense. They hadn't been protecting humanity from the Viridian Empire. They had been protecting the Viridian Empire from its own hubris. In the Titan facility, Rodriguez watched as the Viridian command structure finally began to crumble. Not through destruction, but through the dawning realization that everything they had believed about their technological superiority had been based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what technology could be. Send the final protocol, he ordered. Show them what cooperation with humanity actually means. As the quantum network pulsed with new information, the Viridians began to understand the true magnitude of their mistake. They had tried to conquer a species that had spent years preparing not just for war, but for peace, on their own terms. The tables hadn't just turned. The entire game had been transformed. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. High Admiral Kraz, once the embodiment of Viridian military might, stood before the assembled representatives as a changed being. His scales, once bright with pride, now showed patterns of deep humility. "We did not understand," he began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "We thought we were gods among lesser beings, masters of technology that could not be challenged. We were children playing with toys we barely comprehended." The holographic displays showed the transformation of the Viridian Empire over the past month. Where once there had been military installations, there now stood centers of learning. Former weapons factories had been converted into research facilities, their quantum-enhanced systems pushing the boundaries of science in ways that benefited all species. In the observation gallery, Admiral Rodriguez sat beside Dr. Chang, watching the proceedings with careful attention. The quantum network that now spanned the galaxy hummed with potential, its capabilities barely touched. "They're adapting faster than we predicted," Dr. Chang noted, monitoring the social integration matrices. "The younger generation of Viridians, especially, has embraced the possibilities of true cooperation." Rodriguez nodded. Fear of the unknown drives conflict. "We didn't just show them superior technology. We showed them how much they had yet to learn." Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from destroying an enemy, but from transforming them into something better. Kraz continued his address, his words carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their quantum network, their psychological warfare, or even their technological innovations. It was their patience. They spent years preparing not for war, but for the aftermath of war. The Council Chamber's displays shifted, showing the new joint human-Viridian projects spreading across the galaxy. The quantum mesh network, once used to disable Viridian technology, now served as the backbone of a new age of galactic cooperation. Ships that once carried weapons now carried knowledge, their crews a mixture of species working together to explore the unknown. The humans had seeded their quantum particles throughout our empire, Kraz explained, not just to control our technology, but to understand us, to learn our strengths, our weaknesses, our potential. They could have destroyed us at any time. Instead, they chose to teach us. In the depths of Titan's command center, now a hub of interspecies scientific collaboration, the original quantum strategists worked alongside their Viridian counterparts. The same brilliance that had been used to prepare for war was now focused on solving the galaxy's greatest challenges. We've received another request for quantum enhancement protocols, a young Viridian scientist reported to Rodriguez. The Arcturus Federation wants to upgrade their medical facilities. Rodriguez smiled. Approve it, and make sure they receive the educational packages as well. Understanding is as important as capability. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in discussion as Kraz concluded his speech. Species that had once feared Viridian military might now saw a path forward to genuine cooperation. The humans had done more than stop an invasion. They had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. There will be those who see our transformation as weakness, Kraz acknowledged, addressing the Council one final time. They will think that because we no longer threaten conquest, we have become weak. To them, I say this. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. In Earth's orbital stations, now bustling with representatives from across the galaxy, humanity continued its work. The quantum network grew more sophisticated by the day, its capabilities expanding beyond what even its creators had imagined. But unlike the Viridians before them, humans remained committed to their principle of neutrality, not out of weakness, but out of the understanding that power came with responsibility. Dr. Chang's final psychological analysis of the Viridian response was telling. They're not just accepting the changes, she reported to Rodriguez. They're embracing them. The quantum network has shown them possibilities they never imagined. Their entire culture is evolving. And that, Rodriguez replied, watching ships from a dozen species dock at Earth's new Galactic Cooperation Center, was always the true goal. Not to win a war, but to make war obsolete. The Galactic Council's original warning now stood as a testament to foresight. They had recognized something in humanity that the Viridians had missed, a species that had learned from its own violent history and was determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. As the council session concluded, a new era began. The quantum network that had been humanity's greatest weapon now became its greatest gift to the galaxy. The Viridian Empire, once bent on conquest, became a leader in scientific and cultural exchange. And humanity, the species that had turned an entire empire's technology against itself, continued its role as neutral peacekeepers. They had shown the galaxy that true power lay not in the strength of weapons, but in the wisdom to know how to use knowledge itself as the ultimate force for change. The stars themselves seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the promise of a future where cooperation replaced conflict and understanding trumped fear. The lesson had been learned, paid for not in blood, but in humility and wisdom. And in the quantum mesh that now connected the galaxy, the echo of humanity's message continued to resonate. True strength lies not in the ability to conquer, but in the wisdom to transform.